Welcome to Innovation Pulse, your quick, no-nonsense update covering the latest in startups and entrepreneurship news. Parallel Systems is revolutionizing rail freight with autonomous tech, Chef Robotics pivots to high-mix manufacturing, and Juliet Wine faces tariff challenges impacting small businesses. After this, we'll dive deep into courageous marketing strategies. Parallel Systems is a Los Angeles-based startup revolutionizing freight transportation by modernizing rail systems with autonomous and electric technology. Founded by Matt Soul, a former SpaceX engineer, Parallel aims to make rail more economically viable for short-distance freight deliveries, traditionally dominated by trucks. The company has developed battery-powered autonomous freight technology compatible with existing rail infrastructure, allowing train cars to autonomously attach and detach, eliminating the risky manual process. This innovation not only reduces costs, but also improves safety and efficiency, offering a flexible solution for various delivery sizes. Parallel's technology also allows for quicker braking, making it competitive with truck economics at a smaller scale. Approved by the Federal Railroad Administration, the startup will pilot its technology in Georgia, testing along a 160-mile route. With a recent $38 million Series B funding round, Parallel's total funding exceeds $100 million, propelling it towards commercialization with an anticipated launch in 2026. While unfitting traditional investment profiles, Parallel's potential to significantly impact freight logistics has attracted notable investors, recognizing the startup's unique approach to modernizing a traditionally stagnant industry. For now, let's focus on Chef Robotics' strategic pivot. Chef Robotics, a startup founded by Rajat Bagaria, is revolutionizing the food tech industry with its innovative approach to robotic automation. Initially, the company aimed to create robots for fast-casual restaurants, but the challenge of robotic grasping, teaching robots to handle a variety of ingredients, proved insurmountable. Instead of persisting in a saturated market, Bagaria pivoted to focus on high-mix manufacturing, which involves producing meals with numerous ingredients for sectors like airlines and hospitals. This pivot was strategic. High-mix manufacturing suffers from chronic labor shortages, with workers enduring monotonous and cold conditions. Chef Robotics addresses this by developing robots that partner with food makers to handle diverse ingredients. This approach not only solves labor issues, but also generates valuable training data, enhancing the robot's capabilities for future applications in fast casual dining. Chef Robotics' unique market focus and adaptability have attracted significant investment, raising a total of $38,800,000, with additional equipment financing from Silicon Valley Bank. The company's success underscores its value in transforming labor-intensive food production with smart automation. Juliet Wine, founded by Alison Lovera, is an innovative startup that delivers upscale boxed wine directly to consumers. What sets Juliet Wine apart is its commitment to providing high-quality wine in a convenient and sustainable packaging format. The startup's product is valuable because it combines luxury with practicality, catering to consumers who appreciate fine wine but also seek convenience and eco-friendliness. The current challenge facing Juliet Wine and many other small businesses is the increased tariffs imposed by President Trump's trade policies, particularly those affecting imports from China. For Juliet Wine, this means a significant annual cost increase of $200,000 due to reliance on a key packaging component sourced internationally. This predicament underscores the vulnerability of small businesses to abrupt policy changes that impact their supply chain costs. Juliet Wine and other businesses are advocating for exemptions or support measures to alleviate the financial burden imposed by these tariffs. Their collective annual revenue of $800 million and employment of thousands highlight the significant economic contribution of small businesses, emphasizing the need for tailored policy considerations. And now, pivot our discussion towards the main entrepreneurship topic.
All right, everybody, welcome to another deep dive into all things marketing, innovation, and a dash of showmanship. I'm Donna, and I'm here with my amazing co-host.
Hey folks, Yakov here. Donna, I am so excited because today we're talking about a hot topic: courageous marketing. Specifically, this idea that truly standing out requires a bit of boldness, maybe even some calculated risk-taking. Are you ready for it?
Absolutely. So I've been reading this new book by Udi Ledergor called Courageous Marketing. It's all about pushing boundaries to get your brand noticed. We're talking bright colors, unconventional mascots, maybe a few stunts you'd never think belong in B2B. So Yakov, how about you break down the big idea?
Sure thing. The big thesis is pretty fascinating. Basically, the safest route in marketing is often the most dangerous. If you play it safe and blend in with everyone else, you end up with dull stock photos, bland language, and a color palette that puts people to sleep. You never really stand out. The paradox is that you can reduce short-term risk, but in the long run, you're at a disadvantage because nobody remembers you.
Exactly. And the book argues that in B2B, this problem is especially bad. A lot of companies, especially in tech, get stuck in that sea of sameness, right? Same stock images, same corporate jargon, the same everything. It's like we all forgot that there are actual humans on the other side of the screen.
Totally. One of my favorite examples from the book is the story of using a bulldog as a mascot. So picture this. While competitors were playing it cool with subdued color schemes and corporate logos, one company goes all out with bright, almost neon-level colors. And then they toss in a bulldog mascot to greet users on the homepage, on the chatbot, even on the login screen.
Right, and the reaction they got was priceless. Some customers literally said, "Why is there a bulldog on my login screen?" But guess what? That question alone meant the brand was memorable. All that break from tradition, that quirkiness, it worked. Suddenly, people were engaged, and they didn't just gloss over the brand.
Exactly, and apparently that flamboyance has roots in Udi Ledergor's own background. Did you know he used to be an entertainer, like a literal magician? We're talking illusions, levitating people, maybe slicing them in half, in a presumably safe manner. Plus, he was a musician and a puppeteer.
Who would have guessed? The point he makes is that marketing is basically show business in a business context. You're putting on a performance to wow people, so they'll remember you. It's a creative craft, not just plugging numbers into a spreadsheet. That bulldog and those vibrant colors, they're part of the big show.
Let's pivot to one of the bolder moves from the book, the time this smaller startup managed to score a Super Bowl commercial. You don't typically hear that in B2B. Super Bowl ads are usually for huge consumer brands. Think soda, cars, chips.
Right, but the genius was in the strategy. The idea was to buy regional airspace only in the markets that actually matter for the business, instead of blowing millions on a national spot. So you can be super targeted. Where do your buyers live? Let's just buy time in those cities. That slashes your cost dramatically.
And as soon as it got approved, the CEO basically emailed Udi saying, "Your neck is on the line. Good luck." So no pressure, right? Then they had to tackle all the complications of filming during pandemic times. They ended up with a quirky commercial featuring a sales VP who looked tiny in a giant empty office, perfectly capturing the remote work vibe of that moment.
I love how they also ignored the typical advice. Wait until Monday to share it. Instead, they posted it on LinkedIn Sunday morning, same day as the Super Bowl, and the engagement just blew up. People were sharing, tagging friends, making comments. Employees got in on the action, and so did influencers.
And the kicker was that the ad actually contributed to record-breaking sales pipeline that week. They used their own data analytics tools, revenue intelligence they call it, to measure mentions of the commercial by real customers. It proved the regional targeting was spot on.
It's such a powerful blueprint for smaller organizations who want that big impact. One framework the book shares is basically pick an offline medium you typically associate with much bigger budgets, like billboards, big newspaper ads, or prime TV spots, then buy the smallest, most affordable slice. Then you photograph or film it in a way that makes it look big, share it on social, and let the perception work in your favor.
Precisely. They call that the punch above your weight strategy. Let's talk about some real examples. They did a Times Square billboard for just 15 seconds of airtime on a smaller screen. Cost them only a few $100, but they hired a photographer to capture that iconic Times Square hustle. Then they put those photos all over social media, leading everyone to think, wow, these guys must be huge if they're advertising in Times Square.
Brilliant. And they took the same approach with a Wall Street Journal ad, bought the West Coast edition, which is cheaper, and then took pictures of it in print to share widely. Most people assumed it was the national edition. The result is the same brand impact without paying a small fortune.
And during COVID, when foot traffic in public places was minimal, they did these virtual billboards. They hired a graphic artist to design mock-ups of big city ads, then photoshopped them into Times Square images. They were transparent about them not being real, but people loved the concept so much they just engaged with it like crazy.
That's the sign of good marketing. Sometimes it's not about literally having a giant billboard. It's about the conversation you spark. Then there's that Warriors basketball game example, right?
Yeah, they basically bought a virtual overlay for the TV broadcast, so their logo was on the court. By sheer luck, Steph Curry broke a three-point record while standing on that logo. Suddenly, that highlight was everywhere. Major networks, social media, you name it.
Talk about perfect timing. And it all contributed to this perception that the company was massive, even though at the time they had under 200 employees. When employees from other companies saw all this marketing, they assumed the brand was way bigger.
Right. And that's key. You don't have to have a billion-dollar budget to create that sense of scale. Sometimes you just need a few well-placed spots and the willingness to do something unconventional.
So shifting gears, the book also dives into other core marketing lessons. One of them is the 95-5 rule. Basically, 95% of your potential customers aren't ready to buy right now, but you still want to build a relationship with them.
Exactly, you create memory links. These are bits of content, experiences, or associations that stick in people's minds. Then, when they move into that 5% who are ready to buy, guess who they remember? You, because you've been building that brand impression all along.
Which ties into content marketing. If your blog posts, videos, or newsletters are just stale and salesy, you'll never build those memory links. People tune you out. But if you're giving them something valuable, even entertaining, then you're top of mind when they finally do need what you sell.
And another point, category creation. The example in the book is how they coined the term revenue intelligence, basically forging a new niche. It's not always easy, but if you can define a new category around your product's value, you avoid competing in a crowded sea of sameness.
Yup. You carve out a new lane, so instead of being just another sales analytics tool or CRM enhancement, you position yourself as something fresh. The potential payoff can be huge, especially if you rally your industry's influencers, customers, and employees around the new category name.
Absolutely, and we can't forget the notion of content worth paying for. The book actually mentions scenarios where the free content was so good that customers asked if they could buy it. Imagine giving so much value that people treat your marketing material like a product in its own right.
That's gold. Then there's the honest take on failures. They mention how the second Super Bowl commercial they did was more expensive and ended up performing way worse. The lesson is that not every big swing will connect. Sometimes you strike out. But that's okay, because if you never swing big, you'll never hit those massive home runs either.
That's such an important point. You won't always replicate the initial success. Sometimes you try to outdo your own bold moves and it just doesn't land the same way. But you learn, iterate, and keep pushing forward.
The book also dives deep into event marketing, trade shows, conferences. The key takeaways? Be intentional with your booth design, your staff training, and your follow-up plan. Don't just show up, collect random business cards, and leave. You have to orchestrate the entire experience, from pre-show buzz to post-show nurturing.
And all the while, you keep this courageous mentality. Don't do the same dull backdrop, the same trifold brochures. Maybe you bring in an actual performer or do a flashy demo that draws a crowd. Do something that'll get people talking on the expo floor and on social media afterward.
Yes. Another area the author emphasizes is marketing and sales alignment. He calls it a two-headed dragon, which is a pretty vivid image. You want both teams, marketing and sales, pulling in the same direction with shared KPIs, shared vocabulary, and a tight feedback loop.
When those teams are in sync, it's incredibly powerful. Marketing can learn from sales about what resonates with leads, and sales can use marketing content to move prospects through the pipeline. Everyone's aligned on messaging and goals. No more turf wars or "that's marketing's job" or "that's sales' job."
Totally. And there's a chapter on when companies should speak up on social or global issues. The stance in the book is that if it's authentic and aligns with your core values, do it. People appreciate brands that use their platform responsibly. But be genuine. Don't jump on a hot issue just for publicity.
Preach. Nothing's worse than a brand awkwardly jumping onto a social movement just to look trendy. You can usually smell the inauthenticity a mile away.
And that leads us to one more important topic: building out your marketing team. You need people who are comfortable with risk, who aren't going to balk at bold ideas. The book suggests hiring folks who have that creative drive and giving them enough autonomy to run with it, while still measuring outcomes and learning from mistakes.
It's a tricky balance, but absolutely essential. You can't hamper creativity with too many layers of approval, what they call death by committee. When you try to please everyone, you end up with a watered-down campaign that pleases no one.
So true. Another gem. The book features insights from other top marketers like Trisha Gelman, Anthony Kaneda, Dave Gerhardt, Michelle Tate, Andrew Davies, and more. The big takeaway is that many of these experts have used some form of courageous marketing, whether it's breaking from the mold or launching a new category, and it paid off.
And what I love most is the real nitty-gritty behind building a brand practically from scratch, going from almost nothing to, as the title implies, hundreds of millions in revenue. That's the dream for so many founders and marketers. And it's not a fairy tale. It's a combination of strategy, guts, and a willingness to think differently.
Absolutely. It reminds me that marketing isn't just about churning out one safe idea after another. Sometimes you have to unleash that inner performer. Be a magician, a musician, or a puppeteer in your marketing. Whatever helps you stand out.
Well said. And I think the final message is that courageous marketing isn't about being reckless. It's about being smart with your risks and realizing that stepping out of the norm might just get you the attention you need.
Exactly. It's that balance of creativity, strategy, and a dash of showmanship. For everyone listening, if you take away one thing, let it be this. In a world of safe options, a calculated risk might be the most reliable way to differentiate yourself.
Right on. So whether you're a startup founder, a scrappy marketer, or even a seasoned veteran, don't be afraid to punch above your weight. Buy that mini billboard. Throw in a quirky mascot. Do something that'll make people stop scrolling and pay attention.
And with that, we're wrapping up. Thanks so much for tuning in and geeking out with us about all things bold and brilliant in marketing. Remember, the best campaigns are the ones that stick in your mind. And if you never push boundaries, you'll never see how far your brand can go.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks everyone for joining us on this ride. Until next time, stay bold, stay creative, and maybe throw in a little bulldog action when you least expect it. We've explored how Parallel Systems aims to revolutionize rail transport with electric technology, Chef Robotics pivots to high-mix manufacturing, and Juliet Wine navigates tariff challenges. Alongside insights from Udi Ledegor's book on how bold marketing strategies can make a brand stand out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends and colleagues so they can also stay updated on the latest news and gain powerful insights. Stay tuned for more updates.